Hello everyone, this is John Rodriguez from Heroes Wanted, and the topic for today's video is something that is very important to all of us at Heroes Wanted. It essentially makes the foundation of all of our programs and everything we do, and that is the Players Pact. Now, the Players Pact is a set of 5 core values, these core values being respect, safety, consent, teamwork, and trustworthiness. And we use these core values in all of our programs, and the really cool thing about this is the Players Pact isn't just for the players or the students. It is also for the instructors, for any of the parents involved as well. And the Players Pact really serves to make Heroes Wanted just a really welcoming and safe space for everybody. So let's go ahead and get into this Players Pact and kind of look at each one of these core values and how they apply to programming, whether it's D&D or to our Minecraft classes. All right, well, the first core value of our Players Pact is respect. And, what is respect? Let's start with that. The first thing here is that, respect is creating an environment where everyone feels like their voice can be heard and that also their ideas are valued by others. So the big part of this is, everyone in Dungeons and Dragons, especially the kiddos, they want to have a voice. They want to express what they want to do, and they really want to have that player agency. But a big part of respect is not just expressing your ideas, but listening to each other's ideas. And that's something with our classes that we really stress, is, hey, I know you're very excited to do this one thing, but let's hear from someone else, Let's give everyone a chance to approach the situation at hand, whether it's a puzzle, whether it's battle, anything like that. And let's give everyone a chance to kind of see what they want to do. And that may change what you want to do, So the biggest part of respect, I feel, is listening over actually expressing yourself. This really comes into play too. We're making sure that we're not talking over each other. And then also that we're not criticizing each other's ideas as well. So this is something I've had come up in recent games in our classes is, well, why would you attack with your sword as a ranger? Because rangers should use their bow. And that player just, I really want to be a sword using ranger. That's great. That is that player expression. If you want to be a melee ranger, that's awesome. Maybe a ranged ranger is better, the ranger's tailored to that, but you don't need to play in that optimized way. So we had to talk about like, hey, this student really wants to be a melee ranger. That's great. Let's let them, that adds to that backstory. Why do you want to use the swords over the bow? Let's explore that a little bit. So really, like, you can see getting into these core values, it opens up conversations about things, and it also gives you a way to approach any kind of issues that may come up while playing. Second core value of our Players Pact is safety. Now, safety is really broken up into kind of two parts here. The first part is, is your physical safety. So I always joke with the kiddos and say, please don't do any front flips off of your computer chairs. We want to make sure that you are in a physically safe environment, that you're not fighting with brother while we are playing together. We want to make sure also that you're not playing with a knife, anything crazy like that. So we always address physical safety first, but then we move on to what we call emotional safety. Now, emotional safety is, being very aware of how we use our words, how we use our tones with each other's. We want to make sure that there is no bullying, anything like that, calling names in our classes. And we also want to make sure that the content of our classes doesn't leave anyone feeling unsafe or uncomfortable. A very good example of this is I was doing a Dungeons and Dragons for a teen group before, and they were in the tomb of a mummy lord who just happened to be a follower of Kosuth, the fire god. And they went through the whole dungeon, and they've been leading up to this big battle encounter with this mummy lord. And they finally get to the room where his sarcophagus is. They step into the room, and the fighter steps forward and begins pushing the heavy lid to the sarcophagus. You can hear the grinding as it tumbles to the ground. As the fighter looks inside, he just sees this just shriveled husk of what was once a human, an elf, something. And as he is investigating closer, they hear a loud crashing boom from behind as the passage they just entered had closed. As the fighter turns back to look towards this shriveled husk, he sees fiery burning red eyes that look at him. And then they hear the locusts. Just the chittering, the constant wing beats of thousands and thousands of these creatures that erupt out of the mouth of this mummy lord and begin filling the room. My intention for this was to have, some sort of like static damage that occurred on a layer action counter. And I thought this was a great idea, but I had one of the players And this player expressed to me that they were really afraid of grasshoppers and bugs, and that this scene and my descriptions made them feel uncomfortable. And you could see that they were struggling with it. And instead of, pursuing and keeping them in that uncomfortable situation, I said, hey, that's fine. So we're going to take that back. There are no locusts or grasshoppers. Instead, as this mummy lord opens his eyes, and you can see the fiery burning hate and pits in there, you watch as tiny embers begin to appear all around the chamber. These embers swirl around and you can feel an intense heat from them. So my mechanic of this, residual damage over time by these bugs was easily replaced with these little fiery embers, and that player was not only validated that they were heard, but was removed from that situation that made them feel uncomfortable. So that's something that at Heroes Wanted we try to do in all of our programs, just to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the content that we are currently going through. All right, the third core value of our Players Pact is consent. And sometimes when I ask kiddos, what is consent, they have a hard time defining it. So I love to say that consent is just a fancy word for permission. And this is so important in all of our programs because this is getting permission before you interact with another player or another player's things. When it comes to our Minecraft classes, this includes, any of their chests, any of their stored items, and it also includes their builds as well, So this really prevents people from griefing or, destroying builds, adding on to builds, or just stealing all their items, because you need permission first. When it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, consent is so important because it is whenever you are going to interact and change the play state of a player, you also need their permission. An example of this is probably one of the most meme-worthy parts of Dungeons & Dragons. It is the Wizard's Fireball. So whenever you are casting an AoE damaging spell that may damage your allies, you need the permission to do so first. This really stops that scenario of the wizard casting Fireball and TPKing the whole party. And it also creates for a very neat interaction between players where they can weigh, the risk versus the reward of casting this massive spell, where it's like, hey wizard, you may destroy all the enemies in this room, but what happens if you get all of your allies down too? So it really opens it up for conversations mid-game, and that's what we really strive to do, is to have those social interactions and those conversations before doing so. I've often found that, the barbarian doesn't mind having Fireball cast on him because he has a massive health pool, but your rogue may not want that to happen, as they don't have as much brawn to kind of get them through. By utilizing consent in our games, we really can avoid players getting upset and feeling like they've had their agency taken away by another player. The fourth core value of our Players Pact is teamwork. And teamwork is so important, whether it's Dungeons & Dragons or Minecraft, because if the whole group is working together, they have a much better chance of success in accomplishing whatever they're trying to do. If it's Minecraft, it could be, building that epic castle that you all want to build. That would take an incredibly long time for just one person to do, but if the entire class comes together and is adding to it and building onto it, that can be done very quickly. In Dungeons & Dragons, if it's fighting, that epic boss, that adult red dragon that has just appeared, that maybe an individual party member would have a very difficult time defeating, but now that you have 3 or 4, other party members with you, that impossible fight is now possible. This isn't just for battle. This can also be, for any type of puzzles, any type of social interaction, anything like that, is that, if you all come together, someone may have some ideas that you didn't consider, or maybe have some other skills that you don't have. And by being able to rely on each other, and that means there's little that you can't accomplish. Teamwork is something that I love to see in all of the games that we do. I really love to see, the kids working together and troubleshooting and relying and bouncing ideas off of each other. And I really feel like that's what our program should be all about, is that critical thinking, but in a group setting where you're just working together to accomplish any type of goal. The last core value of our Players Pact is trustworthiness. And trustworthiness is so important because this comes down to all the players of the group being able to rely on each other, to trust each other. In Dungeons & Dragons, this is so important because you'll be put in situations where you need to have someone to have your back, whether it's battle or combat, and this is the cleric that is reviving someone that gets down when they lose all of their health, or in Minecraft, this is, being able to trust someone that they're not going to break your build, steal your things, anything like that. So I always tell the kids that, in order to trust each other, you need to act in a trustworthy manner. This means that you're following the rules, that you're not cheating, you're not causing issues for anyone else. And I think that that is just so important, especially with kiddos, is that they can have that trust in each other, because once trust is there, then that's where, real connections and friendships can be developed. All right, that's it for our Players Pact. And, I know the Players Pact is something that was developed for Heroes Wanted, but I think that the Players Pact and its core values are something that can be implemented at any table, any D&D table, any group activity like that. So if you like these ideas, I encourage you, please take them, please try to make them work in your groups, and it really can help with group cohesion. But with that, just know you can always sign up for a program at Heroes Wanted at www.heroeswanted.kids, and I hope to see all of you sign up so we can start a new adventure today.